Well, good afternoon, everybody. I know this is a kind of low point. You get a few hours off during the week, so thank you for joining us. We're very, very happy to have, all the way from Austria, our friend, Dr. Stephan Ottrubay from the Esterházy Foundation. He's the head of the foundation, and we appreciate you making this journey, this long journey. I'll let Dr. Ottrubay tell you about what is happening there, but I will say that a lot of what we do with BISC is about partnerships, and this has been a very beautiful one in that from our first introduction to the foundation, they've generously supported bringing our laureates to the magnificent palace in Eisenstadt, where they played in Haydn Hall. They've commissioned music from the Kronos Quartet, as we did. They were part of the 50 for the Future program. And I think our goal is rather similar, which is to share what we have with the world and to make sure that Haydn and other composers are not left to die on the pedestal, but are brought down and made real, and we're reminded that they were just living, breathing people with exceptional skill. But when we leave them up there, that doesn't help. So I love what you've been doing there, and I'll turn it over to you to give some history as to what this magical place is, and then I'll join you after and engage in some questions and welcome some from the audience.
Yeah, thank you very much, Barry. Dear audience, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be here. I'm still a little bit under the influence of an 8-hour jet lag. I arrived last night, so I'm trying to slip into the West Canadian rhythm, but I think I managed quite well. Now I wanted to give you an inside view into the history of Esterházy, and also the history and the present support to classical music. I prepared a very small little presentation. I press this direction, yes. Esterházy, what is Esterházy today? We are a very major cultural touristical program provider in the east of Austria, even across the border in Middle Central Europe. The main place, which is probably the best known, is the Esterházy Palace in Eisenstadt, where the Esterházy family had their headquarters, their center for over 400 years, and where Joseph Haydn was living the large part of his life, almost 40 years, and composed most of his string quartets, wrote a lot of operas, a lot of symphonies, etc. We are also running the Forstenstein Castle, which has an other specialty. It's the most important private, it holds the most important private collection of Baroque treasures, of Baroque gold and silver treasures. The similar treasures are only in large state collections, like the Viennese Kunsthistorische Museum, who took over the Habsburg wealth after First World War. The Kremlin Museum, who took over the large collection of the Tsar family, and perhaps some private, but considerably smaller collections in Italian princely or noble houses. We are by far the most interesting and the most diverse collection of this period, from the time of 1500 until about 1630, where the noble families put tremendous efforts in collecting gold and silverware, porcelain, even natural memorabilia, which they were offered by the colonial traders, strange animals or parts of animals, bones, in the least cases, they knew exactly what their function was. So sometimes a little history was painted around it, but that's how the very early collections, natural collections, which became later the natural museums, started all over Europe mainly. And what is the most important, perhaps, the first automats, the first mechanical machines were developed in this time. So we have a couple of fabulous clocks and moving little things like moving coaches, where the coach drivers direct the horses move their little legs. So today it can be considered a toy, but at the time it was the first experiment of mechanical movements. And some of the findings were then used 200 years later in the 18th and 19th century to develop the first machines, when the steam machine was invented. But the predecessor were these princely and church collections of automats. Now that's the collection in the Forstenstein Castle, which has a history of over 800 years. The Lackenbach Palace was the birthplace of the Esterházy family. That's when the predecessor and the founder of the Esterházy noble line entered into the first marriage, a very good marriage with a rich lady from Western Hungary, and laid the base for the wealth. The lady died after the 16th child, which was not unusual at the time. It was perhaps unusual that she made it up to the 16th. And the second marriage was then also very happy in every respect. It was a love marriage, and also with a quite a wealthy lady. His son got also into two good marriages, and these 4 marriages laid the ground for the entire Esterházy wealth and entire history. So they were never fighting, they were never robbing or looting neighbor powers. 4 marriages made it. Right. That was quite a peaceful development. And last but not least, the quarry of St. Margarethen, which is still in use. About 1/4 of the quarry is used by a tenant company, and still today St. Stephen's Cathedral is being renovated and stones replaced by the stone of St. Margarethen. A large part of the famous palaces in Vienna on the circular road were built by this stone, because it has statically some very nice qualities. 1/3 approximately of the whole quarry has been emptied some 100 years ago. First it was shown to tourists as a big open space, and then some 30 years ago an entrepreneur discovered that open-air performances could be given. He was a pop and rock agent, so his closeness to classical music was relatively little, but he had an opera expert, a person from the Vienna Opera House who gave him some advice how to start. And at the time it was a tremendous novelty, so he attracted sometimes 130,000, 140,000 people with relatively simple productions. But then he did not manage to make the second and the third step into quality performances, and we then had to take over his company in 2014, and since then we are producing open-air opera. Not by our choice, but we could not do other. We had invested in the years before more than 14 million euros in the infrastructure, in a backstage building, toilets, restaurants and so on, and we could just not sit there and see how such an interesting development would stop by bankruptcy or something similar. So it was the will to survive and to make sure that this place could continue, which then was taken up by the public very positively. For weeks the national television was broadcasting daily the next premiere in 2014, and we took over the production exactly 12 days before the opening night. You can imagine how this is. We will shoot a film about it later on, but a very small team of experts. I managed to win from other theaters and opera houses, and since then we are producing the operas. In the last year we had Turandot with about 70,000 sold tickets, and this year we produced Nabucco with close to 80,000 sold tickets. We are already again back on track as for 15 years ago, with tremendously good critics and response from the public. The Austrian state television has brought the opening night live and is now going to repeat it twice. On Sunday, the day after tomorrow, I think we're Friday now, Dreisat, the main cultural channel, European cultural channel, is broadcasting the Nabucco opera. So it has really become an extremely successful open-air venue. Together with Verona and Bregenz on the Lake of Constance, we are now the three big performers of open-air operas.
Wow.
Now, this is our most recent founder lady, Melinda Esterházy. She was married to Paul Esterházy, the last prince of the Esterházy family. They died without children, so she decided after the death of her husband, he died in the year of the fall of the Iron Curtain in 1989. She then decided immediately to bring the entire estate into foundations, which are, so they are like this, similar to Anglo-Saxon trusts actually. Yeah. And benevolent trusts, cultural trusts, so there is no private advantage or direct influence. We are a board of trustees and the supervisory board, and we are managing the entire estate. There's quite a lot of agriculture, forestry, and pure agriculture, about 45,000 hectares, which is about 100,000 acres, I believe. Acre to hectare is about 2.5 to 1, I believe, so it's about 100,000. The quality of the land is very good. We have wineries, in total 3, 2 in Hungary, 1 in Austria. Tourism and hospitality is now the most recent development, which we were forced in, because in many of the places, like in Eisenstadt, in Forchenstein, there is still no decent hospitality offerings, no decent rooms to stay, and Eisenstadt has been suffering very much, although we have 220,000 visitors to the castle, but we could have much more if there would be one decent hotel. And I can tell you that I'm coming straight from the opening of this 4-star plus hotel the day before yesterday. At night we had the large opening of the Hotel Galanta, is the name, right on the castle square of Eisenstadt. I will show you a picture, 120 room hotel in the 4-star plus category.
Well,
so how do we continue?
Can we take a look at this guy? There we go.
There you go. There we have our famous composer, Joseph Haydn, who spent almost 40 years at the court of the princely family, Esterházy. It came not out of the blue that he decided to go to Eisenstadt. The princes had 2 generations before built up 2 orchestras. They had a brass orchestra and a string orchestra, as it was customary at Italian courts. The link to Italy was always very strong, to the courts of Venice, to the Doge of Venice, to the courts of Naples and Milano. And many of the ideas the Esterházys had, they took from northern Italy, like also the building of this palace, which is actually after plans and patterns of large Italian Baroque palaces. And for almost 2 generations, lots of musicians came. There was a rich collection of instruments. At the time, musicians did not own instruments, right. Generally. They were so expensive, so valuable, that even a successful artist could not afford an instrument. You have to imagine that. But mostly the churches or the noble families bought the instruments and put them at the disposal to the artists. So this infrastructure was there, and also a lively musical life. And Haydn, who at the time, as a young musician, at an age of 30, had also already come to quite a renommee in the region. He was known as a young musical genius in Vienna. He then went to different courts and asked, what can you offer to me? And obviously the Esterházys offered him the most advantageous environment. And there he stayed. He wrote easier music, rather entertainment music for the family. The demanding music he wrote for the world. Like the string quartets that were perhaps performed in Eisenstadt, but not really to the noble family, but to the connoisseurs he invited from Vienna and from other places. And the large symphony orchestras, symphonies, the first ones, which are really of a more simple pattern, he performed then in Eisenstadt. But once he became very important, he traveled twice to London, and that's where he then developed the very demanding style. And the London symphonies are the most famous ones these days. Even for Paris, he wrote symphonies, although he never was there. Actually, it was Pleyel. Right. Who then built pianos at the time, mainly built pianos and was an agent. But and he commissioned the symphonies, about 3 or 4 of the Paris symphonies. He would have liked to go Haydn, he didn't make it, but they're still known, the Paris symphonies. They're also very advanced and very experimental. So, the next jump, a little video. Opera in the Quarry. Turandot 2 years ago. There was Rigoletto 4 years ago. It's a unique architecture, the pathway which leads from above down to the quarry. It won many prizes, architectural prizes. And that's next year's programs. You're kindly invited.
Wow.
If you have, this is our fall festival under the name of Herbstgold. Julian Rachlin, who has also been a couple of times in Banff, he is the musical director of the fall festival. Here you see him. I think that's the
Beautiful. Wow.
That's the entire video. Wow. A little insight into the rich program which we do offer. In total, we have yearly approximately 500,000 visitors, paying visitors to the exhibitions, to the museums. At the 3 large castles, we show in total 7 exhibitions now, and have about 200,000 visitors, mainly from the larger regions, quite a lot from Middle Central Europe, Hungarians, Romanians, Slovakians, and then Austrians, Germans, of course. And the rest is distributing itself on in the opera and in other types of events which we do organize. We would obviously like to bring up this number to another additional 50,000 or 100,000 by now establishing several accommodation offerings and possibilities in the region. One of it is the hotel in Eisenstadt, which I mentioned, virtually a fabulous 120-room hotel. You will find it if you go into internet, like Hotel in Eisenstadt or Hotel Galanta. It will pop up immediately. We are planning another hotel right next to the castle, the fortress of Forstenstein, with about 50 rooms, and we already have established a hotel infrastructure at the castle of Lackenbach, which is in the middle of a huge park, originally a Renaissance park of 22 hectares, of about 60 acres.
Now, to get to Eisenstadt from Vienna, how is that journey? How long is that journey?
Well, from Vienna it's about 45 minutes by bus. There's even a little train. You only have to change twice, so I would rather recommend a bus, but quite a lot of direct lines. So we even take the visitors from the center of Vienna and have shuttle buses, like here in Banff as well. But the journey is 45 minutes. We are even closer to the airport, the Viennese airport of Schwechat. There the journey is about 30 to 35 minutes. So we're extremely centrally located in many respects.
Well, as you saw in your, for those of you that are here for the week, you had in your package a little flyer about what one of the festivals that the Esterházy Foundation is putting on. One that's closely related to us, of course, because laureates of our competition will perform there, as will the Emerson Quartet, which will be one of their very last concerts. And I'm looking forward to going there. It was always a dream of mine to play in the Haydn Hall with the St. Lawrence Quartet, and that was one of the disappointments when I left the quartet, because they were engaged to play there just after I left. So I'm going to get to finally go to this beautiful place. And what I so love is that the programming of the Haydn Hall is so innovative. It's not just a bunch of Haydn quartets. It's Haydn quartets and contemporary music. You commission a lot of music.
We do, yes. We have a close cooperation with the Lucerne Festival. That is due to Andreas Richter, our director of classical music. He used to be the director of the orchestra of the Lucerne Festival. And we're supporting jointly we commission contemporary classical music or advanced music now for 6 or 7 years, and 2 of the composers have reached European fame. A lady, the name Erika Wiegmann, I believe. my name recognition is not that extremely well, and a Swiss gentleman, Hefti. Andreas Hefti, they are touring the world now with their music, and they regularly come and play also hear their works at the Haydn Hall in Eisenstadt.
You mentioned Julian Racklin as one of your artistic directors. Julian is married to Catherine Cosby, and Catherine was the first violin of the Linden Quartet, which was here in 2007 or 10. And Julian saw the video of the competition and saw the beautiful Catherine Cosby, and the rest is history. So that's why it's very important that we do fantastic video coverage of all the quartets. Yeah, but we're looking forward to welcoming Julian back here with Catherine in the future. Yeah.
And we're obviously very, very happy and grateful that for 6 or 7 years we are in the position to support the International String Quartet competition in Banff.
Yes.
You have probably seen in the program book that we're inviting the winner quartetto to a European tour. We invite them to play once or twice in Eisenstadt.
Yes.
We pay them the flight, the
Yes.
entire tour, everything, which is a package of about 13,000 Canadian dollars, but we are very, very happy because this links us to Banff, and it brings the world's probably best quartettos to our region.
We have actually with us Andrea Hampel, who works closely with Andreas at the foundation and arranges larger tours for the winners. So having what we call this anchor date of going to Eisenstadt and playing Lucerne Festival, of course, that makes the building of a tour much easier. So we're incredibly grateful because we can't do career building alone from Banff. We have to rely on the partners that we have, like this remarkable partnership with Esterházy, like our relationship with Southern Methodist University, and that's our goal, is to have these partnerships. I hope that some of us get to visit Esterházy, get to visit Eisenstadt. It's truly extraordinary. I didn't realize the scope of the programming. I didn't realize the opera festival, for instance, and that is just magnificent. We tried doing some outdoor opera here, and we had more of a amphitheater infrastructure behind. But having lived here for several years, weather is an issue. Right? Weather is a big problem for outdoor presentations in Banff, so I'm not sure our outdoor opera has much of a future here. So, but yeah, we actually did present opera just behind this building. And we would have 2 meteorologists on site as required. It was quite unbelievable, yeah. Are there questions for Dr. Ottrubay about this remarkable place?